All right, everybody. Welcome to yoga. So we've been diving into the kleshas, what yoga philosophy calls the causes of mental disturbances or suffering that stem in the mind. I opened up the book of Thich Nhat Hanh today, Pieces Every Step, and sometimes I just like to randomly snap my finger and see what calls out to me that day, and how interesting that this is very relevant to avidya, the first klesha. He talks about internal formations. He says, there is a term in Buddhist psychology that can be translated as internal formations, fetters, or knots. When we have a sensory input, depending on how we receive it, a knot may be tied in us. When someone speaks unkindly to us, if we understand the reason and do not take his or her words to heart, we will not feel irritated at all, and no knot will be tied. But if we do not understand why we were spoken to in that way, and we become irritated, a knot will be tied in us. The absence of clear understanding is the basis for every knot. So this is related to avidya, which means misunderstanding or ignorance. And then he goes on to say, if we do not untie our knots when they form, they will grow tighter and stronger. It's sort of that reactivity button that can cause road rage. And then later he says, if we know how to live every moment in an awakened way, we will be aware of what is going on in our feelings and perceptions in the present moment. And we will not let knots form or become tighter in our unconscious and conscious. And if we know how to observe our feelings, we can find the roots of long-standing internal formations and transform them, even those that have become quite strong. In yoga, we call that samskaras, those imprinted knots or habitual ways of thinking. So the reason I read that today is, how do we bring that attention into our physical practice and in our breath practice? And most importantly, our mental focus. We are constantly watching ourselves, as we hope, as is the practice of yoga, as we're on the mat. And we can think of this mat as sort of a playground of experimentation as we enter different situations, which are different postures, the external contexts. We can see how our minds may react, how our breaths may shift, what things are below the that might come up. The things that come up during challenges as you're trying to do an arm balance, or when things are really easy, perhaps the mind easily wanders, are similar to the things that may come up in parallel situations in daily life, outside of the yoga poses. So how do we continue to build our awareness from the mat, off the mat? Let's find a seat. So firming down to your left and right sitting bones. Lift up your rib cage, especially your back ribs. Let the belly gently press inward towards your spine. And then as you rest your hands on your lap, let the shoulders soften. In fact, let's move the shoulders around for a moment, tuning into. As you slowly inhale, pull the shoulders forward and up. And as you exhale, roll the shoulders back and down. Try that a few more times as you slow your breath down. And maybe as you're doing this, closing your eyes and becoming more other parts of your body as well. Tuning into what you might physically need out of this asana practice, and mentally need, energetically need, setting your intention. Then relax the shoulders down as you broaden your collarbones. Continue to lift up from your lower vertebra as though you could restack the middle, the upper, the cervical spine, and the crown. Feel the breath in, begin to balance with the breath out. Visualizing the route of your, the physical landscape of your body. And then start to create, if you're not already, a soft whispering sound. You can do that by gently narrowing the back of your throat. A soft constriction, like harshly like that. And as you listen to the sound of your own breathing, track the way you are. This. And as you continue to listen to this pranayama or victorious breath, which begins to up the body, calm the nervous system, gently open your eyes, and let's come to all fours, hands and knees. Now, if you do have yoga blocks, I invite you to take them and place them on their medium height, the second level, like a number 11 in front of you. And if you don't have blocks or anything like that, you can just use the ground. Now set your elbows on top of the center of each block, exactly your shoulders distance apart. Then walk your knees slightly behind your hips, maybe about 2 inches behind. Press your fingertips into each other so you're hollowing the center of your palms. And then as you trace your thumbs down the back of your skull towards the back of your neck, lower your head and draw your shoulder blades further back. As you would in downward facing dog, rotate your outer upper arms or triceps towards the mat so that you can broaden the tops of your shoulders, broaden the shoulder blades apart. Do let your chest sink towards the ground as well as your head, but not your belly. So slightly lift your belly in support of lengthening your lower spine. Draw your sitting bones back. Listening to your breath, let's take 3 to 5 more here. Here we're opening up muscles that help to stabilize the shoulders, especially the shoulder blades onto the upper back when we're in positions like plank. We're also stretching into the lats along the sides of the upper ribs. Opening up across the tops of your shoulders into the trapezius muscle. Finishing this last breath, draw your belly inward towards your spine to help you rise back to all fours, hands and knees. Put your blocks aside and spin out your fingertips so that you can stretch your inner wrists and forearms. Maybe they face the outer edges of your mat or your knees in some way. Let's enter some movement in cat-cow. As you breathe in, glide your chest forward, then roll your shoulders back, lifting your heart and tailbone in cow pose. As you breathe out, contract your belly, looking down between your knees, rounding your back in cat pose. Take a few more cycles on your own slow, conscious pace. On your exhalation, relax to a neutral spine, spin your index fingers to face forward. Let's take a modified vinyasa. Starting from plank pose with your knees on the ground, glide forward, bend your elbows back so your arms are parallel, hugging your side ribs, and lower your chin first, then slide your chest and belly, then your pelvis. And from here, let's lower the right ear to the floor. Slide your right arm straight out to the right so that your palm is face down. Pressing the ground away with your left hand beside your left shoulder, start to roll over onto your right hip. Release your right shoulder blade further down your back, clearing space on the right side of your neck. And for just about 4 more deep breaths here, continue to open up the right side of your chest, inner shoulder. You might explore how it feels to step your left foot behind you. The more weight you lean back, the deeper the sensation. just find what's a good balance here as we begin the practice. On your next exhale, slowly roll onto your belly, face down. Sliding your left arm straight out to the left so the palm is face down. Lean your left ear on the floor and press your right hand on the ground just beside your right shoulder, slowly rolling over to your left side. Slide the left shoulder head further down your back. And as we take about 4 more breaths here, consider stepping your right foot back. On your exhale, gently roll onto your belly. And let's crawl the fingertips outside of your mat in line with your shoulders so that you're bending your elbows wide apart. Point your toes and press the tops of your feet actively onto the ground so that your knees are not resting on your mat, but your pelvis is on the floor. As you breathe in, and gently your head, slide your shoulder blades down. As you breathe out, look over your right shoulder and rotate it, if you can, further back and down. Inhale, look forward again. And exhale, look over your left shoulder and rotate it further back and down. Try a few more cycles of isolating the rotation of your shoulders. Stretching your neck as you look side to side. Or any other movement feels better for you. As we warm up neck and shoulders. And from here, let's enter Sphinx pose. To keep your chest lifted and place your elbows on the ground, just slightly in front of each shoulder. Forearms are parallel in front of you, palms face down. Broaden your collarbones and slightly lift your sternum right between them, while looking slightly down and ahead. Lengthen the back of your neck. Feel your shoulder blades slightly come together as they glide down your back ribs. Continue to actively lengthen your legs and press the tops of your feet down so that you're stretching your lower spine. Let's take 2 more breaths. Now tucking your toes behind you, press your heels back so much that your knees, your shins lift off the ground and you feel your tailbone energetically reaching towards your heels. Look at your belly for a moment and see if you can lift it away from the mat. Then look just beyond your thumbs and lift your pelvis off the ground, forearm plank. We're here for 5 breaths. Bring your feet to touch, press your inner heels back. Exhale, 5. Inhale, broaden your chest, look slightly forward on the ground, not collapsing your head. Exhale, 4. Inhale, slide your shoulder blades apart and down your back. Exhale, 3. Deep inhale. Your body like a long plank of wood from crown to heels. Exhale, 2. 1 more breath. Lift your lower belly and the sides of your waist. Exhale, begin to walk your toes forward, coming into a short dolphin pose. Breathe in, breathe out. Replace your elbows with your hands and come up into downward facing dog. Take a moment if you choose to shift around, pedaling your feet, shaking and nodding your head, or to right away be still. First few breaths. As you flatten your palms on the earth, shoulders width apart, see that your index fingers are both facing forward, parallel to each other. Rotate your triceps towards the ground, broadening your shoulders. Lift your shoulder blades back away from your neck, dropping your head. Feel free to bend your knees as much as needed, especially at the start of the practice when the hamstrings might not yet be warm, so that you can truly lift your sitting bones up high and draw the fronts of your thighs further back, shifting more weight downward through your heels, even if they don't meet the floor. As you firm your belly in, let's take 2 more breaths still in Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Keeping your 2 hips leveled, inhale, raise leg behind you. As you exhale, bend your right knee towards your nose, round forward and lightly step the foot inside of your right hand. Come up onto your fingertips in a high lunge. You might have your hands on blocks if that helps, or your back knee to the floor to help relax the shoulders down. Inhale here and broaden your chest forward. As you exhale, begin to straighten your right leg by scissoring your right outer hip back. Elongate your spine forward and bow inside of your right shin. Let's continue a few more times. Inhale, rebend your right knee just over the heel. Exhale, scissor your right hip back with a feeling of a flat back fold. 3 more times. Breathe in. Breathe out and fold. Inhale, lunge. Exhale, scissor and fold. Inhale, lunge. Finishing that off. Return to the lunge and set your back knee down. Untuck your back toes. And then press your hands on top of your right thigh, lifting your torso upright. Now, without visibly moving your legs, bring the inner action as if you're dragging them towards each other. So your hips keep facing forward evenly, and you feel a slight lift in your pelvic floor, a lift in your frontal hip bones. Now let's bring a little more warmth and stretch into the front of your left hip and thigh. You might like to slide your right heel an inch or few forward. Draw the fronts of your shoulders back. Lift your back ribs and let your tailbone descend. And perhaps you add lifting the arms overhead, wrapping your triceps forward as you slightly coil your chest up. Taking 3 more breaths here in Anjaneyasana. Lowering your fingertips to frame your right leg, tuck your back toes, look beyond your mat, and keep your right knee bent as we enter a very modified Warrior 3. To crawl your fingertips onto blocks or the floor, 1 foot ahead of your right toes. Keep your 2 hips leveled and flex your left foot off the floor until your left heel is at the height of your left hip, which is at the height of your right hip. Lift the sides of your waist, broaden your chest forward, lengthening the back of your neck for 3 more breaths here. Modified Virabhadrasana 3. Deep inhale. As you exhale, step your left foot forward, hips distance from the right. Fold in. Press your legs to the ground. Inhale, lengthen halfway up. Exhale, fold again. From down to your feet, inhale, sweep your arms overhead, rise and look up. Exhale, slide your palms down your center line, mountain pose. Inhale, stretch your arms high. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, press with your fingertips to lengthen halfway. Plant your hands flat, back into your version of plank, and let's hold for 3 breaths. Whether your legs are straight or your knees are supporting you on the ground, make sure your wrists are directly under your shoulders. You're looking ahead of your hands to lengthen your neck. Belly is lifted. Now choose either to lower knees, chin, modified vinyasa, or glide forward and enter Chaturanga Dandasana, where you bend your elbows close to your side ribs, like a push-up, and then come all the way down. Press the tops of your feet down for Cobra as you breathe in. Tuck your toes, press your mat away, and exhale back to downward facing dog. Keep your 2 hips leveled. Inhale, raise your left leg behind you. Exhale, round forward, bending your knee towards your nose to soften, step your left foot inside of your left hand. Come onto your fingertips or grab blocks for under your hands. You might also adjust by lowering your back knee, whatever allows the most natural space in your neck and shoulders. Inhale in your lunge, look forward. Exhale, begin to straighten your left leg by scissoring your outer hip back as you lengthen your spine, fold. Inhale, rebend, left knee over the heel. Exhale, scissor, left hip back and fold. Keep going for 3 more cycles of breath. Finishing your last round, lower your right knee, untuck your back toes. From your left foot still and press your hands on your left thigh to rise up into a kneeling lunge. Now feel your frontal hip bones lift and sit of your legs towards each other. Pelvic floor lifts, centers contained. You might scoot your left heel forward an inch or more if you want to feel a deeper stretch in the front of your right hip and thigh. You might even add raising your arms. Your balance feels pretty stable here. Wrapping your triceps forward, oiling your chest slightly up. Feel the quality of 3 more cycles of breath here in Anjaneyasana. Lowering your fingertips to frame your left leg, tuck your right toes, look ahead of your mat on the ground, and then walk your hands 1 foot ahead of your left toes to prepare for very modified warrior 3. Bending your left knee a lot, flex your right foot off the ground until your heel is at the height of your right hip, which is at the height of your left hip. Then lift your lower belly like plank pose and broaden your sternum forward or your chest forward, lengthen the back of your neck. Last 3 breaths. Can you feel the plank of wood that is the shape from your crown, tailbone to right heel? On an exhale, set your right foot hips distance from your left and fold at the top of your mat. Inhale, come up halfway. Exhale, fold in. Rooting down, inhale, rise, tall, palms touch. Exhale, your hands together at your hearts. Bring your feet to touch as we enter sun salutation. Be a few times. We're gonna go into a continuous flow right away, a breath-led movement. So slow down your breathing where you can hear it. With feet touching, knees touching. Inhale, bend your knees together and sit your weight towards your heels, arms up in chair pose. Exhale, shift forward and fold, Uttanasana. Inhale, press with your hands to lengthen halfway up. Either step through plank or lightly jump into Chaturanga as you breathe out. Whether cobra or upward facing dog, inhale into your back bend. Contract your belly to lift your hips as you exhale into downward dog. Inhale, raise your right leg behind you, keeping your hips squared. Exhale, control through the belly, land the foot inside of your right hand so your feet are hips width apart. Dropping your back heel face forward and inhale, rise up into warrior 1. Then exhale, lower your hands into plank pose and keep going down into Chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, raise your left leg. Exhale, round forward to lightly step your foot inside of your left hand. Dropping your back heel, facing forward. Inhale, rise to Virabhadrasana 1. Then exhale, lower through plank into your vinyasa, your pace of breath. And when you arrive in downward dog, I invite you to let your body be still and steady your gaze about halfway towards your feet onto your mat, where your neck can just relax. Feeling the lengths of your breaths. We're going to continue into 2 more cycles of Surya Namaskar B. So bending your knees, look ahead of your hands, and at the end of your exhale, hold your breath out while lifting your pelvic floor, walk or lightly jump to the top. With feet touching, inhale, lengthen halfway up. Exhale, fold again. With knees touching, inhale, sit into chair pose. Exhale, rise up. That finishes the first cycle. 2 more to go. Keep going with your breath. Inhale, Utkatasana, chair pose. Exhale, Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, half forward fold. Exhale, walk through plank or lightly float into chaturanga. Inhale into Bhujangasana, Cobra, or Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, Up Dog. Downward facing. Inhale, raise your right leg. Exhale, softly step it forward, dropping your back heel. Inhale, rise into Warrior One. Exhale, lower into your flow. If you need to tone down your vinyasa, you could substitute cat-cow in place of it, or skip it all together and go straight to downward dog whenever needed. Side two, inhale, raise your left leg. Exhale, set your foot lightly inside of your left hand. Inhale up to Warrior One. Exhale, ride the wave down into your flow of choice. Arriving in downward dog, being still. 3 to 5 breaths. So I'll still cue the last round, but I encourage you to go at your own pace of breath, especially if you have the pattern of the movement and know what's next. So bend your knees, look forward. On empty breath, lightly land at the top. Feet touch. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, fold. Knees touch. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, rise up. Last time, inhale, chair pose. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, step or float back. Keep going through your vinyasa. From downward dog, inhale, right leg back. Exhale, step it forward. Inhale, up to Warrior One. Exhale, lower into your vinyasa. Second side, inhale, left leg back. Exhale, step it forward. Inhale, rise, Warrior One. Exhale, lower to flow or straight to down dog. Downward facing, 3 to 5 deep breaths. When you're ready, walk or float on empty breath. Inhale, lift your heart, gaze towards the tip of your nose. Exhale, bow in. Inhale, chair pose. Let's stay in chair. We're gonna meet here as we take on eagle pose. So cactus, bend your elbows apart and cross your right elbow over the left. Hook your thumbs or wrap your forearms and palms and draw your shoulder blades down your back. Lift your elbows to the height of your shoulders and gently press your forearms away from your face. As you firm your belly inward, sit a little lower if you can, then turn out your left leg from the hip, flexing the foot as you wrap your left leg over the right. If you're able to, tuck your left toes behind your right calf, scissoring your left hip back just enough so your knees and elbows trace the midline of your body. Your hips are evenly facing forward. Then see if you can sit a little lower, keeping your spine upright. About 3 more breaths. Steady your gaze. Garudasana. Now we're going to enter Warrior 3, whether you choose modified hands on the ground or blocks, or join your hands in prayer, or keep your arms like this. Unravel your left leg horizontally, flexing the foot behind you. Keep your hips leveled and lengthen your spine horizontally. Feel a slight lift in your belly as you broaden your chest forward. Virabhadrasana 3. Coming into standing splits, lower your fingertips on the ground, a foot ahead of your right toes, or use blocks. Keep your 2 hips level as you flex your left foot. First, breathe in and lengthen your chest forward. Then breathe out, lift from your inner left thigh and bow towards your right shin. Now, don't worry about how high you're lifting your left leg, even though it's called split. Be more concerned that you're leveling your 2 hips, creating balance in your lower back. If you want to challenge your balance a bit more, you could wrap your right hand around your right calf or both hands around your right calf. Let your head hang, but lift your shoulders away from it. Feel the space in your neck. Let's take one more breath here, and then we're going to bend the right knee and softly step your left foot all the way to the rear of your mat to land in Warrior 2. So when you're ready, bend your right knee. Try to make it a gradual transition as much as you can. Windmill your arms apart. Warrior 2. So see that you're aligning your right heel to the arch of your left foot, or feel it. Slightly turning in your left leg as you ground the outer edge of your left foot and straighten your left leg. Turning out, bone down under your body so that you bend your right knee just over your heel, aligning the middle of your right knee with your middle toe down the midline of your mat. Opening your arms, see your wrists stack above your ankles, spine tall, eyes steady. Let's take 4 more breaths. Now wrapping your left arm behind your back, perhaps catch hold of the top of your right thigh. Keep the bend in your right knee as you flip your right palm to face up. Lift the sides of your torso, then lean toward the rear wall in a side graceful warrior. Sliding your shoulders down your back, hug in your front rib. Imagine breathing a little deeper into the right side of your lungs. Take a deep inhale, and as you cartwheel your hands and knees to the floor. From all fours, set your elbows on the ground exactly your shoulders distance. Either have your forearms parallel, palms face down, or interlace your fingers and create a triangular base, rooting firmly downward. Draw your shoulder blades back away from your neck. As you look towards your thumbs, broaden your chest. Then hollow your belly, tuck your toes, and lift your hips as though your legs were in downward dog. If you can, walk your feet closer to your elbows, but press your chest back towards your shins. We're here for 4 more breaths in dolphin pose. Now, as you would in downward facing dog, rotate your triceps towards the ground or your rear wall to keep broadening your shoulder blades. Lift the shoulders away from your neck. If it works better for you, you can just let your head hang, but know that you're not bearing any weight on your head in this posture. Whether you place your knees on the ground first to transition to downward dog, or plant your palms flat and simultaneously lift your 2 elbows, let's come into downward facing dog. A few breaths. Bending your knees, look ahead of your hands. On empty breath, lightly land at the top of your mat. Inhale, lengthen halfway. Exhale to fold. Bend your knees to touch. Inhale into chair pose. Then cactus, bend your elbows apart and cross your left elbow over the right. Either hook your thumbs or wrap your forearms and palms. As you sit a little lower, feel a containment of your center. Turn out your right leg and flex the foot as you wrap your right leg over the left. Or tuck your right toes behind your left calf, scissoring your right hip slightly back so that your elbows and knees stack down your midline. Steadying your gaze, steady your mental focus. So clear perception often comes from taking that pause and observing from a distance the situation in which you need clarity. Just like observing those knots as they start to tie up within us. Entering Warrior 3, you can keep your arms like this, join your hands in prayer, or lower your hands towards the floor in front of you. Flex your right foot, unravel your right leg straight behind. If you're pressing the heel against your rear wall, lengthen your torso forward to create a straight line parallel to the floor. Feel your two hips leveled, and again, steady your gaze. Can you feel a relationship between this posture and plank pose? A lot of similar muscle engagements. Standing splits, lower your fingertips a foot in front of your left toes. Keep your hips squared, your right foot flexed. First, breathe in and lengthen your spine forward. Then exhale as you lift from your inner right thigh, bow towards your left shin. Few breaths. If you feel like playing with your balance some more, you could wrap your left arm behind your left calf, or maybe both arms. Notice the difference in flexing that right foot, how it stabilizes your balance. Envision slowly landing your right foot at the rear of your mat in Warrior 2. And try to take your time getting there. Windmill your arms apart. And then align your left heel to the arch of your right foot. So right leg slightly turns in as you straighten it. Press the outside edge of your right foot to the floor. Turning out your left leg, wrap the sitting bone under. Bend your left knee just over the heel. Align the center of your left knee with your center left toe with the center line of your mat. Pelvis upright, arms wide open. So now the form and alignment is set. Where might you soften the edges? Now keeping your left knee bent, wrap your right arm behind your back. You might be able to catch the top of your left thigh. Flip your left palm to face up. Lift the sides of your torso, then lean sideways towards the rear edge of your mat in Peaceful Warrior. Hugging in your front bottom ribs. Relax your shoulders down. And maybe visualize breathing deeper into your left lung here. On an exhale, cartwheel your hands to the floor and step into plank pose, top of a push-up. Staying in plank, bring your feet to touch and firm your heels back so that your quadriceps are engaged. Think of that straight line from crown of your head, tailbone to heels. Now look at where your wrists are and try to keep your two hips balanced as you slowly replace them with your elbows, coming into forearm plank pose. So slow and controlled, feeling your center contained. Once you're in forearm plank, look towards your thumbs and broaden your chest, lengthen the back of your neck. Feel that straight line from crown to heels. Begin to cross your right forearm to the left upper corner of your mat, so it's diagonal in front of you. Roll onto the outside edge of your right foot as you flex your feet and stack them. Come onto your left fingertips and raise your left arm to the sky. Now your forearm side plank. You flex both feet, press your heels towards the rear wall, draw your shoulder blades apart and down your back ribs. Reaching up to your left hand, feel your right hip lift a little higher. Last 2 breaths. Arm towards your front wall. Slow back to center in forearm plank. Parallel your forearms on the ground. Broaden your chest forward. If you need a moment to rest, lower your knees into Sphinx first. Otherwise, stay in forearm plank for a couple more breaths. We're going to the second set. If you're resting in Sphinx, tuck your toes. Join us in forearm plank. Cross your left forearm diagonally towards the right upper corner of your mat. Roll onto the outside edge of your left foot, stacking your 2 feet flexed. Come onto your right fingertips as you lift the left hip away from the floor. Stack the right hip directly over it. Then raising your right arm, broaden your chest, broaden your shoulder blades away from your neck. Feel a sense of rooting down through all points of contact with the floor in order to lift up, especially through your left hip. Last 2 breaths, you might raise the right arm overhead towards the front of the room. Forearm Vashisthasana, side plank. And then slowly come back to center in forearm plank. Take at least 1 more breath here, and then we'll meet in Sphinx pose. Once you've lowered your pelvis in Sphinx, let your collarbones smile as you take a deep breath. Stick out your tongue in lion's breath. Open your mouth wide. And as you close your lips, smoothen out your breathing through your nose and lower your forehead to the floor. Bring your hands behind your lower back as we prepare for balance. Interlacing your fingers. Press the tops of your feet onto the mat, knees off the ground, pelvis on the floor. Then inhale, coil your chest up, stretching the knuckles of your hands towards your heels. Count about 4 more deep breaths before you let this go. So in this version, we're firming down the tops of your feet. Feel as though your tailbone was reaching for your inner heels. Lengthen the back of your neck by looking slightly down. Great back strengthening posture, especially lower back and the erectus spinae along the sides of the spine. When you're ready, plant your hands alongside your floating ribs. Take a pause in child's pose or meet us straight in downward facing dog. You choose. Notice what your energy is telling you. Deep inhale, slow exhale. So let's set the knees down for a moment. I'd like to give about 2 minutes for your choice of an active inversion. So if you practice headstand, that would be a nice continuation of balancing on our forearms, Shirshasana, in which you have the triangular base of your forearms, top of the head on the floor. If you have neck issues or you don't practice headstand, you could practice another dolphin pose, maybe lift a leg, keep your hips squared like we did in standing splits, and then lift the other leg. Or downward facing dog, or standing forward fold. Try to not practice shoulder stand or plow yet, since we're still building heat. So take about 2 minutes on your own for your inversion practice. If you are in Shirshasana or coming into it, make sure that you're rooting down through your forearms, lifting the shoulders high away from your neck, so that most of your weight is actually carried by your arms. It's a lot of upper body strength rather than the head holding you up. You want to maintain the natural curvature and space within your neck. And if you do lift both legs, flex your feet and hug your midline. Press your big toe mounds up towards the sky. Feel your tailbone lift towards your inner heels, creating a vertical line, stacking ankles above pelvis, above shoulders, above elbows. when you decide that you're finished with your inversion, let's all meet in child's pose. Notice any shift in your breathing as you rebalance it. So we are about to enter single pigeon pose with a heart opening variation. If you have any knee issues and you know that it's more suitable for you to lie on your back, take the figure 4 shape, the supine version instead. So let's start on all fours if you're taking the upright version. Hands and knees. Then cross your right shin in front of your pelvis onto your mat. Slide your left leg straight behind you, tucking the toes. Place your hands alongside your hips and lift your pelvis for a moment so that you could really square your hips by scissoring your right hip back. You might place something under your right glute if there's empty space. And then from here, place your fingertips in front of you on the ground or on blocks so that you can lift your chest, roll your shoulders back and down. So here's the first variation of that back bend. Keep your left toes tucked so that it helps you square your hips, and then broaden your chest, making sure you're not compressing your lower back by thinking of drawing the tailbone down and slightly forward, even though it's leaning back. Lift your back ribs away from it. The second variation is to backstroke your left arm and catch hold of your left hamstring. Use that to open the left side of your chest and keep lifting your sternum. The next variation is to bend your left knee, lean forward and slide the knee back so you're not putting weight on the kneecap. And with your left hand, catch hold of your inner left ankle or foot. Using that counter force, like a bow and arrow, to help balance as you coil the chest up. You might add raising your right arm up. If you are raising your right arm up, you might go a little further if your left hip flexor is willing and hook the crook of your inner left elbow with the top of your left foot, clasping your hands overhead into sort of a mermaid version of this posture. Lifting your chest, try to keep your hips squared as much as you can. So whatever variation, if you're lying down in the figure 4, make sure that you're flexing the foot that's crossed on top of the thigh. Let's take 3 more breaths. Slowly unravel back to hands and knees. If you're on your back, you might like to bend your knees towards your chest and just circle your thighs together and apart. Otherwise, try raising your right leg behind you and giving it some movement at your hip, helping to increase blood flow into the hip joint. Now for side 2, start from hands and knees for the upright version. Slide your left calf in front of your pelvis across your mat and straighten your right leg, tuck your right toes. Place your hands alongside your hips and lift your pelvis, scissoring your left hip back. You might place something under your left glute to keep the balance of your pelvis. And place your fingertips in front of your left calf on blocks or the floor and broaden your chest, lift your heart. Start here with your back bending. If you feel like you could take it further into the back bend, backstroke your right arm and catch hold of the back of your right leg. Lifting your chest further, draw your tailbone down and think of tilting it forward even though it's leaning back. Lift your back ribs away from your tailbone. If you want to take the back bend further, bend your right knee and catch the inner side of your right ankle or foot. Kicking the leg straight as you pull the foot, you might raise the left arm, opening your chest. Or a step further, hooking the inner crook of your right elbow with the top of your right foot and clasping your fingers overhead like the mermaid version. Feel the space in your lower back as you firm your belly to support it. Broaden your collarbones, lifting your heart. Let's take 3 more breaths. Easing out of the posture, come back to your neutral position, your counter movement. So if you're on your back, you might circle your legs again or take happy baby. If you're on hands and knees, you might lift your left leg and rotate it. Let's come to sit, pelvis at the center of your mat, legs straight in front of you, preparing for Paschimottanasana, a seated forward fold. Now, if you like, you can use a strap around the balls of your feet. Flex your feet and separate them hips width apart. Feel the engagement of your quadriceps in support of your hamstrings. Draw your shoulders back and down and take a deep breath as you press the ground to sit up taller. Then exhale, hinge from your hips, keeping a slight lift in your chest as you walk your hands forward. Inhale, anchor your sitting bones and lengthen your spine. Exhale, broaden your chest and fold forward. About 3 more breaths. On your next inhale, lift from your chest to rise up, then lower all the way down to your back. Now let's insert that last inversion, the cooling one. Whether it's shoulder stand, plow, as long as you have no neck injuries and can practice them safely. Supported shoulder stand, you could use a block if you have one under your lower back and lift your legs up. Maybe there's a wall you could lean your legs against. It could be a restorative legs up the wall, Viparita Karani, or legs up the air. Come in a relaxed position, lift your legs up higher than your heart. Let's take about 5 to 10 slower exhalations than inhalations. A way of breathing to help relax your nervous system more deeply. And to accentuate that relaxation, you might breathe into your belly, which also helps digestion. In addition, to release heat, you could exhale to your mouth. So taking your time, once you finish counting 5 to 10 breaths in your inversion, gently lower your body. Take any last soft movement or stretch. Fish pose is a great counter posture after shoulder stand or plow. Perhaps a supine spinal twist. And then intentionally lower your body into a resting position where you can let go of any effort, even in your breathing. Relax into consciousness. It comes up in the mind, the body, entering Shavasana. Keep your eyes closed. Allow a moment to just contemplate the effects of your practice today. And perhaps anything useful you can integrate from it into your next moment. As you allow your breath to deepen, gently move your body into an easy stretch. Drawing your knees together. To your side, rest on your head. Bringing the energy that you've cultivated through this practice. Rise up slowly to sit when you feel ready. Is this a practice of opening our bodies, deepening our breaths, relaxing? More so, it's a practice of building bladder, exercising that muscle here so that it's stronger, more yes, clear perception. Hands in prayer, bowing in to close with one chant of Om. Take a deep breath. The light in me bows to the light in you. Namaste.